Schneider. Here we focus on helping men and those with men in their lives solve some of life's complex challenges through understanding the practices of mindfulness and how they can help. Each episode is an environment free of judgment and criticism, with a focus on authenticity and inner peace. Let's dig in.
Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." Our show slogan is raw, uncut, and unapologetic. What that boils down to is authenticity. And this is what we're going to talk about today. What it takes to be your authentic self. It's a gift to be yourself, and a gift you give to the world when you are your authentic self. Why? Because you are of your unique self-expression, and your one-of-a-kind mind, and this expression gives others the inspiration to be themselves and unapologetically express their own unique voice and gifts. Boom, we're back. Men Talking Mindfulness. John, my co-host over there in Colorado Springs, and I are super stoked to break down authenticity and demystify this aspect of mindfulness and make it meaningful to you. How are we doing, John? Good to be back.
I'm doing well, brother, man. I love that we bring our slogan into this show to discuss what authenticity is. That raw, uncut, and unapologetic. That's authenticity. Boom. We can wrap up the show right now. Done. Oh, man.
Awesome.
And that's one of my favorite things is when we talk to people about the show, whether that's via a message later on LinkedIn or social media or an email or even a phone call or a video call. That's what I often hear is that people appreciate the authenticity of the show. And that's what's so great. And it means a lot. It means a lot to hear that. And we're going to get into why it's important and how much that allows you to connect with other folks. But first, I got some announcements, so I'll stop rambling. And those announcements are, as we always say, we appreciate if you guys you as our audience will follow us on YouTube, and we've made it that much easier. You just go on YouTube and type in the @ symbol Men Talking Mindfulness, or you can go on youtube.com/@ Men Talking Mindfulness. There, it's easy. Go ahead and subscribe, hit that little bell so that you get notified of that new content when we do release that new content. And we do release stuff outside of our podcast. We release meditations. Will has released a lot of little mini shows that kind of delve into a little bit of stress, a little bit of hydration, anything like that. So we do have shows that are on there for our subscribers. Next thing, we've talked about this, but save the date, the 18th through the 21st of 2023 for our next iteration of the Mindfulness Adventure Retreat. And this one is going to be on the East Coast and
East side. East side.
Oh, I didn't see that coming.
I'm sorry.
It's exciting, man. You're going to start throwing up the symbol. Boom.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. East side.
Yeah. So, hey, this retreat, it's going to be out there on the East Coast in upstate New York. And then Will is offering the weekly breath, the weekly midweek refresh. And that's going to be on Insight Timer. That's Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Check that out. If you're not following Will on Instagram, go ahead and follow him there. He's going to put out more details there. And then that's, again, on Insight Timer. Don't have to have any experience. You can roll with that with zero experience. Check it out, Insight Timer. You can follow both of us on Insight Timer as well. That is a meditation app that we are putting more and more content on, to include this podcast. We're going to actually start putting our podcast on Insight Timer to tap into a new audience. And then finally, we are finally going to get a permanent merch store open. That's not open yet, but it will be soon. And we wanted to let you guys know that that's going to be out there. You're going to be able to order the hats, the sweatshirts, the hoodies, the tank tops, coffee mugs, keychains, anything that you want that we have the MTM logo on. And we would appreciate you guys' support, because that does help us to fund the show, because we don't make any money off the show. Where it's actually the opposite. But anyhow, we don't do it for money. We do it for the impact, and that
for
impact.
The love.
To talk, the impact, the love, the progress that we're helping you all as audience members and society at large make through implementing mindfulness and the aspects tied to mindfulness part of your life. All right. I think that's all I got, man. Let's kick it off with that grounding practice like we always do, man. Is that you, Will? I've got my notes got signed out in the middle of my reading. So
Oh, well, yeah, John, if you still need notes on the grounding practice, I think
not the
you
grounding
gotta.
practice.
I'm just-
I could do the grounding practice backwards, upside down, and inside out.
and standing on your head too, right?
Yes, yes.
For sure. Well, I'll do the grounding practice, John, to begin, and we just do 5 breaths, everybody. 5 breaths to hit the reset button and just to help you get more focused and grounded and absorb what we're going to talk about today about authenticity. So we'll just simply exhale out the mouth, really hit the bottom and pull the navel in to even extinguish the rest of that exhale, and take a big giant breath in through the nose and let it go out softly. Again. And imagine the exhale just kind of melting you into peace. The shoulders soften, the face, the jaw, your body drops into your hips. Again, inhale. Exhale, melting, letting go, dissolving. 2 more in. And think of the inhale as like the opportunity to find more peace as you exhale into that peace. Great. 1 more. Easy out. Take just one little moment here and thank yourself for being listening to the show today. And we thank you for listening to the show today. And let's get started, John. That East Side thing, John, was actually a good example of being authentic. I think that's a good place to start.
Well, that's a better place to start than our typical way of defining it. But I love it, man. That was the definition of authenticity in action right there. And then also our flubbing words and goofing off, and the fact that saying fuck signed out, and dropping the F-bomb all over the place. That's authentic, man. It's real. So that's authenticity. Let's define it, and then get a little bit into why it's so important, why it's so hard to be authentic for some, and in different times, right? It might be easy to be authentic among your friends, but maybe it's not. It might not be easy to be authentic with your colleagues or whatever. So man, let's start with that definition.
All right. Authentic defined. Authentic means not false or an imitation, right? It's real and actual, right? Real, actual. Another definition is true to one's own personality, spirit, or character. And here's it says, true to one's own personality, spirit, or character. Here it says is sincere and authentic with no pretensions. Yeah, is that right? Pretensions.
Yeah.
And then synonyms, I thought would be good just because we're gonna be using so these words are not exactly what authenticity is, but they are definitely similar synonyms. So bona fide, genuine, honest, and real. Yeah. So we mentioned real a couple of times. Like genuine is good. Honesty, honest, and truth. This is gonna come in the conversation as well, and we'll make a little bit of a distinction, but there's obviously some similarities there as well. And bona fide, I've always thought was a great word. What I don't use often enough, but I do use bona fide once in a while. It's a good word. If I can authentically,
if you can use the word bona fide authentically, I want to know, man, because I'm
a bona fide bad motherfucker, dude.
I love it.
How's that?
I love it.
Just kidding.
There you go.
Anyway,
that was very
for
authentic, Will, man. Oh, I think we've already dropped the record number in this show so far.
Oops. Sorry, everybody. Unapologetically, though. Sorry.
That's right.
So let's. We defined. So and maybe another quote. I mean, you want to read?
Man,
there's a few more here. So jump on, man.
Yeah, sure. So rather than love, rather than money, than fame, give me truth, and that's Henry David Thoreau. And we already read Ralph Waldo Emerson's one, and then Brene Brown, who I'm a huge fan of. The truth is, belonging starts with self-acceptance. Your level of belonging, in fact, can never be greater than your level of self-acceptance. I want to read that part again. Your level of belonging, in fact, can never be greater than your level of self-acceptance, because believing that you're enough is what gives you the courage to be authentic, vulnerable, and imperfect. So that one really, really resonated with me, because a lot of the time we don't have that self-acceptance, and so that we put forward we wear a fake mask, we wear a false armor. And I know we've touched on something similar to authenticity in the past, in our past episodes here and there, but we've never done an actual episode on it. So it's great that we're delving further into it and getting deeper into being our authentic selves. But what, that said, go ahead.
No, how often do we talk about, from the masculine perspective, false bravado?
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, that's like, that's exactly the opposite of like putting that armor on and drinking the Kool-Aid of how you should be, and how you should show up and the way you should be speaking or acting and even walking or holding your shoulders is like, that is not an authentic place.
Right.
And I think what the opposite of authenticity is, is, I should put the antonyms in here as well, is being fake.
Yeah.
Is like being somebody else or trying, to put up a false sense of who you are.
Well, why do we do that? Why do we do that? Why do we?
It's fear. It's fear. It's fear. It's self-protection.
Yep.
It is
wanting to fit in.
Wanting to fit in. That's a great point. Like really, really trying, especially, wanting to. Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of it. Is like is that social contagion of trying to fit in, or conforming is another thing. As I was doing the research for this, conforming to, what everyone else is doing, or someone else's values, or someone else of their own self-expression. And, there's nothing, conforming. I think that's, that's how we're kind of raised in some sort of conforming setting in some ways. Like, I mean, because your ideal up until a certain age, like your ideal, view of a man or a woman is your father or your mother or whatever, in some ways. And maybe you'll conform for a certain amount of time to how they do things. And then there might be a point, and hopefully there is a point or there has been a point in your life that you're like, oh, wait, that's not me. That's my father. Or that's my mother. Or that's like some other influence that you've had in the past. And then it's like, but who am I? And I think that's the question, that's the question that is, that will take some time to answer and to develop. And again, we talk about meditation all the time, to go in on the inside and do some self-discovery work, in that non-doing, non-action kind of meditative space is very important. But I think trying on new hats, you know what I mean? It's like, growing up, I was in the fucking marching band, John.
I was too, man.
Trombone, no shit.
Yeah.
Me too.
No shit. How did you not know this about one another?
Shit. I did a fucking trombone. I was horrible. That's wild.
Man. Wow. I did not know that. There you go. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you actually brought that up. Funny enough, I didn't see us going down this path, but
whatever, we're here.
I actually, in my mind, when I was in the band, I was like, I'm such a nerd. Why am I like this is what I thought of myself, right? I was like, I'm such a nerd, and that's why I left. That's why I left the marching band, and I regretted it, because I learned so much, not just necessarily through marching, but playing music, playing an instrument, that I let kind of fall by the wayside, and I still regret it to this day, to the point where I long since sold my trombone, and about 4 years ago I bought another one and realized just how difficult it is to play. And I was like, I got frustrated, and then ended up selling that one. And I've talked about it to my wife. I'm like, hey, I should buy another trombone. She's like, don't you dare buy another trombone.
Gear guy. Another.
Yep.
Well, it sounds like you knew how to play the trombone. I feel that my music teacher, I think he was just nice to me. Like I think there's me and this other woman, Kristen, who were two trombone players out of, I don't know how many other people were in the band, like maybe 30 people, all different instruments. Lots of, not flutes, clarinet, lots of clarinets. Because I think the clarinet is easy to carry in the fucking school. You know what I mean? It's easy. Instead of like a trombone is a big case. But I was awful. But I remember doing like marching band in the summertime and then we'd go on the field, and I had no idea, John. Literally, I was just like hoping like my sound was being, swallowed by the drums and all the other instruments around me. And I was just like, I was awful. And I remember, I thought it was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I had a plume in my hat. You know what I mean? Like this big feathery plume, wherever that came from in our history as humanity. So anyway, trying out different hats. Like we both got the chance to play the trombone, but we also in that rubbing up against something new. And I think this is a key part to discovering your authenticity is you either know if like, oh, I want to do more of that, or like, you know what, that's not me. But what I did learn from this new experience is X, Y, and Z, and therefore I can take these with me. And I know that it's part of who I am maybe. And then moving in a direction and stepping eventually into who you are.
That makes me think in Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights. Actually, I sometimes get confused as whether it was in Green Lights or whether it was in his commencement speech at the University of Houston, because there's a lot of overlap between those. Yeah. But he's talking about figuring out who you are and how important figuring out who you are not is to figuring out who you are. It's just as important, if not more so. So hey, you figure out that, hey, okay, marching band is not for you. I figured out the same thing eventually that was not for me. I figured out some other things that were not for me. Like I tried to play football, but I was, skinny, lanky guy, but I wanted to play football because that was the cool thing. Right. Yeah. That's like Friday Night Lights in my hometown, Ruston, Louisiana. That's Ruston, Louisiana. They live for their football. Lots of Louisiana, lots of Texas. They live for their football. And so I was like, okay, well, I want to be a football player, but I was not a football player. And I identified that pretty quick. Like I just was not, but I realized, what I can do, I can freaking run. And that was,
there you go.
By kind of elimination. I found what I was not able to do or not good at. And what I also did not enjoy. Like I honestly just didn't enjoy playing football. And that I was trying to be something I was not. And so in realizing that I was trying to be something that I was not, and I have nothing against football players, just to be honest.
Love football.
I still love football. I love football players. But I was not a football player, and I did not personally enjoy playing. I'll watch football. I love watching football, but I'm not very good at playing it, nor did I enjoy it. So that's all to say that to discover who you truly are, who your authentic self is, sometimes you do need to wear those multiple hats and figuring out, okay, you know what, I'm going to try this out. Oh, and now I realize this is not for me. Or I realize, oh, this is for me, but I would have known it if I hadn't tried it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Experimenting, I think, is a big part of discovering your authenticity and then ultimately your true self and then your true expression.
Yeah.
Look
at here's an experiment right now. Men Talking Mindfulness is in and of itself an experiment. Like, hey, Will and I, this whole thing started with a monthly phone call between Will and myself. And we put it out. We decided to start putting it out as an Instagram live show, and then we started realizing that we really enjoyed it and that other people liked it as well. And now we've grown it into a podcast, but we never would have known if we hadn't tried and experimented with something. So, and in doing that, some other broadcasters, some other social media folks, they portray something that isn't authentic. And, why are they doing that? Coming back to fear or the feeling that they're not going to be accepted amongst their peers or by their friends, their family, their colleagues, or by the social media society, if you will. The authenticity can go both ways, or hey, you can be authentic and be accepted for being authentic, but sometimes you're not accepted for being authentic. And I want to talk about that later in the show too, and how important, if you're accepted for being inauthentic, are you really being accepted?
Not That's really. A great Not fucking really. Point.
Yeah.
Oh my God, just so many things I want to say. I just had a thought, and then you came back to the inauthentic versus like being accepted for being inauthentic.
Well, I'll give you time to be authentic and gather your thoughts.
Yeah.
So think about where you wanted to go with that. But in the meantime, we've talked about why it's hard to be authentic, and we talked about fear. wanting to fit in, wanting to be liked. And then coming back to that social media thing, a lot of what you hear in this
That's
day
what I
and
was
age,
gonna say.
the social media is,
Yeah.
hey, you have a brand. Oh, well, you can't put this out there because it's not in line with your
You're
brand.
deviating from the brand. That's
Yeah.
one thing I was gonna say is like, we might we're very easily influenced by our environment and the people in our environment, especially people that you might deem, or society might deem as successful.
Yeah.
And therefore, if they're successful, then I need to be like them, right? So therefore, I need to walk like them, talk like them, act like them, and I think there's probably in depending on, I guess, in a lot of realms of human expression, whether it's like in business or whether it's in art, or you're definitely going to have people that we want to aspire to, but not necessarily like be their twin or something like that, or like version 2.0 or 3.0 or whatever. And I think maybe that's where we can get trapped, because it's also what's attached to that. So therefore, say I start acting like some business leader, right, who's uber successful, and I start becoming uber successful, and I start making a lot of money. And therefore, but so out on the outside, I'm like, oh well, Will's successful, like, because he has all this money, he has accumulated all these things, and so the version of success from the outside is like, boom, like he's wealthy, versus like, but what's going on the inside? And I think that's one thing. It's like what's earlier, the first or the second definition. It was being true to yourself, being true to one's own personality, right, and spirit or character, right, and they're kind of like expressions of the same thing.
Sure.
And that's like and it's but maybe I think it's also the environment that you're raised in too. Are you encouraged to be your authentic self? Like my parents, I was lucky. I was lucky to have a mom, my dad too, in some ways, but not as much. My dad, hey Dad, I love you. I mean, he doesn't listen to the show, so, but he didn't even hear that, but, and it might be a little sad right now, but my mom has been, very a force of like, she told me to go play the trombone. Like, my dad, got me to the football field, which didn't work out, but that got me to running. And I was really passionate about basketball.
Right.
And I was able to, like, thankful for my mom, like, I was able to cry and able to express myself emotionally, instead of being confined, right? Confined masculinity is definitely like a form of being inauthentic, right?
For sure.
Whereas liberating masculine would be the opposite, being your authentic, man, masculine, male self.
Yes, real quick. What those terms mean for those who have not listened to one of our previous episodes. So we read Redefining Masculinity by Ed Adams and Ed Frauenheim. It's actually on my shelf behind me, but
I'm trying to find it actually too, but I don't have it next day.
rather than using the term toxic masculinity, which has become so pervasive in social media and everywhere else, they use the term confined masculinity, because in today's society and society going back eons, for the masculine type, and even more specifically, I would say for men in the past, the accepted roles of a man is the conqueror, the provider, and the protector. Those three: conqueror, provider, protector.
Right.
And there's so much more to the human life, the human experience. You could be the nurturer, you could be the artist, you could be the trombone player, right? And there's that, when you accept that and you start bringing those other roles into your life and actually knowing that you can fulfill more than just those three, that's the liberated masculinity, right? So confined, and once you bring out the other side of things, that's the liberating masculinity. So sorry, I just want to make sure our audience knew what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
could kind of get lost.
Yeah, I mean, again, in this conversation, confined would be being inauthentic, not being yourself, not expressing your true character and spirit and personality. Whereas being liberated, and it takes work. It takes work, to go from one to the other, and hopefully you're not digressing from liberated to confined. I mean, that's like, I guess that can happen, but I don't know why someone would do that. But maybe there's some sort of tragedy that shifts them in another direction. But it's I like what we're talking about here, John, as far as the importance in order to find your true self, right? In order to find who you authentically are, is to try on different hats, to do different things, to experiment, with things that and one thing that we're going to just bring it in now is authentic expression is more, it's a heartfelt expression. It comes from, instead of it, this season, John, has really been so helpful for me. I'm glad we keep coming back to this, for our audience, because the mind, it divides, and like, we need to know the difference between, this is a coffee cup and this is a microphone. So I'm not going to speak into the coffee cup. or drink from the microphone, right? That's important. It's important, right? Very important, but then we have, but then the heart, right? The heart is this unifying energy, right? Instead of separating energy, which is the mind. And, when we are authentically expressing ourselves, we are authentically expressing ourselves from our own heart, or our own unique energy and electricity and expression of the heart. And it might take, if you're not used to, or a confined masculine, or just anybody that hasn't been rewarded for being heartfelt, it's just going to take a little work to get in there. But if you're living passionately, in the sense of, I like this, so therefore I'm going to go do that. Like, I took a pottery class, as an example, like a few winters ago. It's something I like to work with my hands. I like to create shit. So I was like, I'm going to go. There's a pottery place here in New York, and they have a whole school. Nice. That's one thing I like about New York. There's just, there's so much you can do here. So I signed up for class. Yeah, it's great. So I just worked with pottery for like 3 months, not to be a pottery person or whatever, or a potterist, right? No, I'm just kidding.
A potter.
A potter. Yeah, sorry. Yes, right. Instead of a pianist, a potter, same thing, right? But I learned, it taught me, I learned more about patience. I learned, I like, clay, and I like, I just like the act of creating. Exactly. Yeah. The act of making art, or just creating something. And, but that helps me to be more creative in other aspects of my life. I'm not, running around making a fucking pot or a bowl out of everything. But I'm able to just trust my creativity, and that creativity is also connected to your heart, and that heart, again, is going to help you find and discover more of and I think it's also an ongoing process of being your authentic self. It just keeps evolving, and maybe things come up, and you're authentically expressing those things for a while, and then maybe those things don't come up again. But I think it's just I think it's an ongoing evolution, I think, in some ways, to find and be your authentic self, definitely to be your authentic self, but to live and maintain. It's just like,
I think it takes a level of maturity that a lot don't have.
Yeah.
I mean, coming back to our high school examples, right? We got wrapped up in the fact that we wanted to be the cool guy. Like, I wanted to play football because I wanted to be the cool guy. I didn't want to be in the band.
Get to chicks.
Yeah, right. I didn't want to be in the band because I at the time thought that being in the band was not cool. Right.
Yeah, definitely.
And I allowed societal perceptions and societal perceived norms to kind of drive what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. And that was because I was immature. But I think that authenticity comes with a level of maturity that either comes with time, experience, whatever. But, I think ultimately, yes, it's difficult to be truly authentic, but I would say it's even more difficult to be inauthentic all the time, right? You have to put on a show. You have to be wearing this mask.
Fake. It's false.
It's so fake, man. It takes so much energy. Like if you and I wanted to be inauthentic on this show, so the opposite of raw, uncut, and unapologetic.
What is it?
I mean,
scripted.
What would the 3 words be? Yes, we have some notes that we go through and we reference, but we don't read them verbatim. or at least most of the time we don't. But we would also go through and edit out every single and everything else.
Scripted, edited, and
Yeah.
apologetic, right? That's our show.
Yeah, that's the
Scripted. Anyway,
antithesis of
sorry.
what we are. So how much effort would that be? And obviously that's an anecdote, but where else in life does it take so much energy? So dating, right? When we initially date, how often do we put forth this like facade of who we are? We're like, oh yeah, I don't know, this particular brand of coffee, when in reality, I don't fucking know all my coffees. Or I don't know, we make these stories up.
Yeah,
We kind of,
yeah.
we put forth this fake image of who we are so that we will be liked by the person that we are
Yeah,
pursuing in a
huge part of
romantic
this.
relationship. But here's the thing. When you put forth that fake person,
Yeah.
if the other person starts to like you,
Yeah.
they're not liking you. They're liking
Right.
somebody else. They're liking this fake you. And then
Yeah.
that's laying a foundation that's not going to last in a relationship. So why
No.
not start the relationship off by being your true self, like allowing people to see your flaws physically, emotionally, spiritually, or flaws. They're not flaws. They're your real self. Like
Right.
let people see the real you.
Your uniqueness.
Your uniqueness. Yes.
Yeah.
So let people see the real you, and your relationship is going to be stronger, probably last a lot longer, and be more, the relationship itself is going to be more authentic.
Yeah.
And that, that applies in a romantic relationship, that applies in a friendship. I mean, Will, you and I have, we've never hidden some shit, right? We lay everything out there, whether it's on the show or elsewhere.
Right.
We lay it out there, and I appreciate that about you, is that
Likewise.
you do not put forth this fake armor. Like I know who the true Will is.
Thanks, man.
And then, colleagues at work. Now, granted, what we do is kind of work and a friendship together, but I would say, in most workplaces, a lot of people are walking around carrying this facade, wearing this wearing this mask, and that takes a shitload of energy. And your colleagues who work with you, they like you because of this false image that you're portraying, and or they want to work with you. Like, let's say you're in sales and you're putting forth this facade. Well, somebody wants to buy from you because you're putting forth this fake. No, man, I don't want to deal with people who know the wrong me.
No, not at all. I mean, it's like I think you bring up a really great point. And where does this come from, right? The need. Well, we just mentioned Brené Brown earlier, but the need to be liked. And I guess being liked means being accepted, and being accepted comes down to one of our very primal instincts is to stay with the tribe, because if I stay with the tribe, I can survive, right?
Yeah.
But right, so it's like so I think it actually but we don't live in hunting, fishing, and gathering tribes anymore, right? We live in a world that there's no shortage of expression in the world, right? With social media and stuff. So and what wins every single time, though, what wins, like again, like I was actually it's the being authentic, and there's, because again this being authentic is attuned to the heart, and I can feel somebody. I mean, it's the heart it's like it has a bullshit detector in it, right? Like when someone is just full of shit, or like putting up a false bravado, or is just insecure in some ways, and I want to sound like I'm being judgmental. I'm just like using this as like, because we know these people in our lives. Like I've been there, you know what I mean? For sure.
I've been there.
And it's like, and I'm glad I'm on the other side, because but I had to go through that part of my life in order to not go back to that part of my life and know that didn't work for me. But the heart has a natural kind of bullshit detector in it. And then also, and the other side of that is the heart also knows when it's being presented with the truth. Like if you, when you hear somebody said or say or express to you, I felt that, that's authenticity.
Yeah.
Like that's coming from a space that is outside of the mind and from the heart, but using the mind in order to express that heartfelt, expression, or whatever it is. Whether that can be art. Like, I mean, you look at, how, John, like, which is amazing, like how when you look at a painting that was painted 200 years ago, like Starry Nights, you just feel it. Like I was in a museum the other day or a little while ago, and I saw, I forget, I think it was Van Gogh, and like you
The
just
immersive
walked in the
experience.
room. No, it was not. It was
Uh,
actually
have you done that?
it was at the Met. No, I have not yet, but there's been a
Dude,
lot. Like
I love it, man.
Gustav
It's
Klimt
so
was here.
cool.
Yeah, I love that stuff. So, but we're walking through the Met, which is like, the huge art gallery. You talk about
Yeah.
self-expression, right? Huge gallery, one of the largest. It's a museum, for art. And we just walked in this room, and like these paintings again, 100 years ago, or I don't know, 150 years ago, and you're just like, what is that? I'm just drawn to it because
Sure.
his passion, right? His energy was put in that painting. And,
Right.
and here, I'm just not just seeing with my eyes, I'm feeling it with my body. And that's also what the authenticity can do for you when you're speaking from that place, or even just like really standing and not even saying a word and just being in your peaceful, authentic self. And I think authenticity is going to bring you also is my experience, a sense of peace, because I'm not holding up the bullshit.
Dude.
I'm not like holding on to the bullshit. I'm like, here I am, and accept me if you want. If you don't, it doesn't matter. Right. I
Yeah.
know who I am. And like, I know one thing about being authentic and being, you're not going to please everybody, because there's no use even trying anyway, because that's just being a populist, and that's being bullshit. So
I got to
yeah.
come to that piece about peace that you mentioned, right? It's going to bring you some peace. And this comes into play as being a father, and you've seen the chaos.
It's awesome.
That is my house at
so
times.
love
And
it.
it is awesome, but it's also
Talk
very,
about authenticity. Your young
yeah,
kids
right.
like,
It's they are very authentic with me.
yeah, there you go.
But the
Good.
flip side is, that as a dad, or as a parent, you kind of want to put forth this, hey, look, I've got it all figured out. I'm a parent, you're a kid. You have to listen to me because I've got it all figured out. But man, there are times when I mean, there are infinite number of times that I do not have it figured out. And the times that I admit that to my kids are normally the times when they connect with me a lot better. Like last week, an example, or actually it was earlier this week, I was getting agitated, and I stopped and I took a few breaths, and I even teared up, and my kids stopped what they were doing. And my oldest daughter, she came and she put her hand on my shoulder, and she's like, Dada. She actually calls me Dada, but Dada, you're doing a great job. And I was like, holy shit, like, right. And I was like, but that was me being authentic, right? They connected with me, and then everything else changed. The peace, the dynamic in what was happening completely changed. Everybody was calmer. Everybody was like, okay, let's do what Dad needs, because he's obviously struggling in this particular moment. So let's bring him some peace. So the authenticity brings peace internally, but it also brings peace in a relationship, whether that's a romantic relationship, whether it's a relationship between a parent and a child, whether that's a relationship between one colleague and another. Being authentic, it does bring that sense of peace, and it does change the dynamic in the relationship and in the moment. So I just wanted to touch on that when you mentioned the peace piece.
Well, it's almost like it's a first nature of ours. I mean, because again, here we are talking about your children, and they're like fully authentic. I mean, it was so funny to see Taylor. I was out there in March to see Taylor in the back of the van, and he was just having a little bit of a meltdown because we weren't playing a video on time. He's like, I want to watch the video, Daddy. Why can't the video work? And I'm just like, oh my God, this poor kid, right? But fully living in that moment, being fully authentic.
Yeah.
And that's like, I mean, but that's like, there's first nature, second nature. That's like a first nature way of being. And we have that as a child. And then we begin to get socialized in some ways. And maybe, depending on your socialization, again, depending on the influences in your society and in your community, but and then then it's always waiting there to be discovered. Because when you mentioned that moment that you were just like, you had like an emotional moment with
Yeah,
your family. They rallied around you. Like all of a
they
sudden, like
did.
something changed. Like, and they don't have
100%, man.
they don't have the cognitive ability to be like, oh wait, like they're not just going like, oh well, this is what we always do because daddy's like getting upset. You know what I mean? So we need to act. They just naturally.
It
That's what I
was
mean.
their
First
heart,
nature.
man.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
was.
Exactly. When you, and one thing also, John, working from that heart space, another big part in my experience of authenticity is the willingness of others to forgive when
Mm,
you are not like, what I mean, perfect doesn't exist, but when you're
yeah,
not,
try to put
when
you
you miss your
tried.
goal. Yeah,
Yeah.
when you try, when you miss the goal or something, or like, you flub a word or something like that, or like, it's the willingness of
Potterist.
people. Yeah, yeah.
I
The
I didn't let you out, man. I should have let you go with that one, man. I should have
what's
gone let
oh, what did I
the
say?
potterist.
Oh, the Potter.
With
Exactly. I know I was being stupid, but I've learned that. I've learned that honestly, John, like being stupid like that is just another ridiculous form of authenticity. That
yeah.
like it just, I don't know, it just lightens things up and it just like makes everybody, or I don't know. I feel like it just puts. It's like I don't know. There doesn't have to be such a seriousness, John, in every
Yeah.
conversation, every interaction. It's like it's okay
What are you
to be
talking about? We must
yourself.
be serious
Yeah,
all the time.
exactly. Right,
Like, how
right, right.
fucking
Yeah,
boring, right?
yeah. Edited, right? Raw, uncut. Edited.
We're
Yeah.
robots.
Oh. That doesn't make any sense to me, John. So it's yeah, but it's like it's to just to there's what I'm we all want to be authentically able and willing or not we all have the ability to be authentically expressing ourselves, right? And whatever that expression looks like, but we all, I think, when we come together as a community, there's that, it's like that authenticity is a bonding agent
Mm,
that begins to happen because it comes from this heart space. And in the heart is what? In the heart is patience, in the heart is forgiveness, in the heart is compassion, in the heart is kindness, right? And those are all beautiful expressions of humanity, versus like if you're in confined, a way, or just in kind of a typical, like the mental state. And because a confined would be like I'm uploading or downloading, and both at the same time. It's like I need to be like this, and therefore you're critical, you're judgmental, you're easily angered or frustrated, because like the mind doesn't have patience. The mind doesn't know what the moment is. It's always trying to figure shit out, or move you forward or take you back, or slice and dice the world as it's coming at you in that moment. So that's forgiveness is a big part, or one of the big lessons I've
bonding.
learned about that is something that comes along with authenticity is the willingness for others to forgive, for sure.
Yeah, well, others to forgive, and it bonds you as a, oh shit, that person's another human being, right? They're not
Oh,
perfect, so
yeah,
now I can actually connect with them on a
right.
much deeper level.
Yes.
And I want to come to one of your stories that you want to share, and I think you've shared it on the show before.
I
As a
have.
yoga instructor, uh, you flubbed a word, right? But what did that do? What did that do for you?
Yeah.
And yeah, so tell the story again for those who may
So
not have heard it.
one thing I will I'll I don't know, I'll pretext to this conversation, or what has done, what teaching has done for me, because I speak so much in those situations. And if I know public speaking for a lot of people is like the second closest thing next to
Yeah.
death or whatever,
Yep.
right? Or maybe a top for some people, is that will help you discover authenticity if you start to speak more. Like I've gotten so much more comfortable, John, from doing this podcast, and just within the podcast itself, by speaking, because it's just it's okay to be flawed,
Yeah.
and but you also learn, but you learn as you continually authentically express, and then but that expression, you get feedback. There's like there's that interaction that might not even um, there's interaction that might not even be uh, uh, expressed verbally, but is still felt physically. It's like I think it's 90% of communication is nonverbal.
Right. Something like that.
It's like a lot. And we learned that in my acting days. It's like, just to be able to, how do you step on stage? It's not like you step on, and say your line. It's like there's something that leads you into that line. And that is a huge clue that the audience gets when you step on whatever into that particular scene. So so here I am, like as a very young yoga teacher, teaching one of my very first classes, with a packed class here in New York City. There's like, I don't know, 50, 60 students or something like that. And and here I am as a new teacher. So it's like, I'm feeling the influence of, like, I was being inauthentic, or, I was just like trying to figure myself out, but
perfect.
also, right. Trying to be, I wasn't necessarily trying to be perfect as much as, like, I was just trying to be good. You know what I mean? I just trying to really, like, to lead a, life altering class, you know what I mean? Or something, you know what I mean? Or like, or lead a class that would be impactful for people, if you will. So I'm there in the beginning of class. It's like the first 3 minutes. I'm like, all right, let's everyone, let's rest in child's pose. And all right, now everybody, I just want everyone to feel your breast. And I was like, oh, fuck, man. I was like, right. And there was this moment, John, it was like, yeah. And I was like, I just froze, right? Because part of, I think also what I have here in the notes is, like, part of the path to your authenticity is dealing with embarrassment.
Yeah.
Right. In some ways. Right. So in that moment, I was like, oh my God. And my heart rate started to go up, and I could feel like I was getting a little flushed. And then out of nowhere, I just said, oh, this is going to be a really great class, or something like that. Right. And everyone laughed. Yeah. Everyone laughed, which said to me, right, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay that I fucked up. And then breaking that ice, John, in that moment for me, it taught me that forgiveness. It allowed me to be authentic, or started my authenticity as a teacher. And I never stopped. I never stopped. And I just find more and more and more ways to try to be more authentic to what's going on in the classroom, what's coming through me and out of me. And, because, and also through what I'm trying to teach and help them in some ways. And it's like, and I've been very successful since that moment, because of just, I don't know, I just fucked up and owned it. That's another thing, owning it. I just owned it, and
breathe and move on, right?
There you go, Bamo, bro.
Bamo.
Right? Bamo, breathe and move on.
Dr. Seth Dickerson, man.
And my steady mind, absolutely. So that was like that one moment that really taught me a lot of authenticity, and now it's like, I deliberately, John, in class tell stupid jokes, like just fucking say really dumb shit, right? and just to see where they are, and just to kind of mess with the class a little bit. And I just have a lot of fun, and I think that's also my authentic expression, is just being playful, being fun. That's who I am. Yeah, I mean that's one of the core elements that I would say what makes up Will Schneider is being playful and being fun.
Yeah, so, well, and it comes through on the show, and it resonates with the audience. But it doesn't just resonate with the audience; it resonates with me. But it even taking it one step further than me and the audience, is like anyone who listens to this, like first time, they know we're being authentic, because like we fuck up, we say the wrong words, and whatever, man, it's fun. Yeah. It's more human that way, right? Coming back to being a robot, we don't want to be that robot, because we want to connect with you as our audience. We want to connect with you on a deeper level, and if we're doing that fake, perfect, like whatever, I'm here in a hoodie and a freaking ball cap. I'm not here in a suit and a tie with makeup on, like trying to present this facade. Like, this is the real me, right?
Yeah, and other people might want to wear that tie. You know what I mean? Because that's authentically them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let me be 100% clear.
I'm with you.
If that's you, roll with it. That's you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. We've talked about
you have a story, John, about
well, kind of. I've touched on a little bit on it. Romantic relationships, like putting my the fake foot forward, and having relationships that were founded on a fake John, and the level of distrust that kind of does. That's just not healthy. But what is healthy is having that real relationship with your significant other, with your kids, your family, your friends, and being the real you, because then you can have real relationships. That was the piece that kind of I learned from it. But we also touched on, identifying what you are not, who you are not, so that you can figure out who you truly are, and figuring out that through experimentation, whatever that experimentation might look like. But I want to talk about, and we have touched a little bit on this. The benefits of being authentic. One, that's easy. That's
Mm,
real. Or it's not easy, but it's something that we've already covered. But the downsides of being fake and inauthentic, that's how draining that is in your energy. What kind of foundation that sets in your relationships, professional or personal. But then I'll like,
it's going to
what
create
about
anxiety as well. I feel, you know
exactly,
what I
that's
mean?
that's where I
Anxiety,
was going,
stress.
like,
Okay.
what
Oh
does
yeah.
it
Okay.
do
Sorry. Yeah.
inside you, right?
Oh
What does it
yeah.
do to your mind and your body, like, to be carrying this fake person around that you present to everyone? It creates a terrible amount of stress and anxiety and potentially even depression,
Mm,
because and it comes full circle to the imposter syndrome episode that we did a
mm,
few weeks back. You're wanting to present something, or you're afraid of being, um, seen as something, other than what you're presenting, right? You're
right.
you're you're afraid of being seen as your real self because you're afraid your real self isn't good enough. When
Yeah.
more often than not, it is. It's not only good enough; it's better than what it is you're presenting. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to touch on, the downside of being fake is not only does it potentially wreck relationships and build fake relationships, but it also, at the physiological level, does harm to our
Yeah.
souls, our bodies, our minds.
Yeah.
Um, so
Well,
so
I
how,
think also. I'm sorry, John. Let me.
yeah, yeah.
So with the, oh, fuck. I feel it also. Uh, it also repels opportunity. You know what I mean? It like kind of
Mm,
pushes away things that might be in your immediate ether, if you will, that can help you, take that next step or figure out a solution to a problem. But if you're fake, it's like, I mean, almost like in that, if you're phony, right? And edited and and all the time, and putting up this false bravado, or whatever it looks like. It's like you have a shield up, and that
yep.
shield keeps the world away from you. It keeps the, I'll say this, it keeps the hearts of others like away from being in your heart.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
It's like, because again, we they've shown this in HeartMath, that we were able to pick up the hearts of other people's around us,
Yeah. The
just
energy.
by the nature and the intelligence of the heart itself, which is
Right.
which is mind blowing. But that's, again, what we said earlier about that. Oh, I felt that, or that's
Mhm.
like, wow, that resonated. I think a resonate is a frequency, right? That resonated with me. It's like I'm projecting, not verbally, but I'm projecting energy from the source of the heart. That
Right.
is, so that's like, well, that's another downside of being inauthentic. It's like, you're not letting others in. You're not letting the hearts of others in, which can shift the course of your life in some ways.
Yeah, what are you missing out on, right? What
Exactly.
what real relationships and real connections are you missing out on?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, man. So we've talked about what authenticity is. We've kind of we've kind of beat that dead horse, but how does one become more authentic? Like, how does one get that shield that they've been carrying, or that armor, or that mask that they've been wearing, and decide to set it down, and not only decide to set it down, but then actually, how do you do that? How do you do that, man? What are your thoughts?
I mean, well, we mentioned it. We touched on it in a few different ways. It's like, what do you want to do? Like, what's in your heart? What is, like, follow your bliss, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Joseph Campbell, like, that could be, and what that bliss is. And if you've never really, or which bliss can be, like, what are you passionate about? And if you start asking those questions, like just even asking what you're passionate about, it's going to lead you into trying and doing different things. And then you get, it's like you got to change the input, John, and therefore, and the output. If you're not
Yeah.
happy with where you are,
Right
right?
there.
It's like, what do you need to, like, you need to change something. Nothing happens till something moves, is what
Mhm.
Albert Einstein says, or nothing happens till something changes, right? Because it's all just going to move through the same loop and the same pattern of doing and being and feeling, and then wonder why there's, like, why I feel so sad, or I'm so void of any kind of, this or that, or I feel empty on the inside. so that's definitely one that comes up for me. It's
Yeah.
like, what's the input? What's the input? What's the output?
Well,
And if you're
I
changing
think
the input,
that second piece right there is what is the desired output, the desired outcome of what it is you're portraying, right? So you desire, if you are in fact being inauthentic, you are saying that you desire for a relationship, a friendship, a business relationship, romantic relationship to be built on false advertising, right?
yeah,
And that is that truly what you want? Most people are not going to say yes, but if you really step back and you're like, okay, what is the desired outcome, output, and why do I desire that? Okay, well, I want a relationship founded in trust. I want a friendship founded in trust and authenticity.
and
Then you're
honesty,
going to be like, and honesty. Then you're more likely going to present that authentic self rather than that fake self.
right.
So I think you hit the nail on the head. There is, what is the input? What is the output? What is the desired output? What is the desired outcome? And really asking yourself, okay, well, why do I want that? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of us put shit on social media. You look at social media, there's a lot of inauthentic stuff on social media.
Yeah.
Well, why are they putting that out there? Well, they want to be perceived as perfect. They want to be perceived as having the perfect body, the successful life, whatever that success looks like. The success most of the time in social media, it looks like having lots of money, cars, nice house, that kind of thing. But is that true success? Most likely not.
Yeah. On the outside, it looks like it's
as we
success.
spoke with Jim Doty, like he had all that, but he didn't feel successful. What did it really boil down to was his being compassionate. Being compassionate was when he truly found success. We just corresponded recently with someone on social media who changed the way that he defined success. He had always defined it as money and cars and a nice house, but then he played a major part in getting a family out of Afghanistan before the Taliban killed him. 10 people. He saved 10 people's lives, or played a part and that's how he defines success now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's different. It's different. Anyhow, I don't even remember what.
No, I have one way, John, that's helped me, and that might be able to shake up authenticity, if you will, is dancing.
Yeah. Ooh,
dancing or singing, right? That they're like, to be in my body. Like I was always like very, the typical white guy dancing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh. But then, like, I think honestly, it was definitely psychedelics that helped me, and marijuana and alcohol really didn't do it for me as much. But like, just being able to, what psychedelics and what pot has done is helped to get the beat in my bones, if you will, like get into my hips. And then I just started exploring and playing and not giving a fuck, and everyone else dancing anyway. And then I just began to find this authentic movement in my body, and it brings, and I also, John, the authenticity, I would love to see, I don't know if they've done studies like this out there. It's like, what's the hormonal cocktail when you're being authentic and being yourself, and what's the hormonal cocktail when you're not being yourself, right? Yeah. So when I am dancing authentically and being in the moment and being in the beat, it's like I feel fantastic, because it's just I'm literally fully present in the moment through my entire body, and I'm being rewarded with this neurochemistry, and therefore, like, when I step outside and go into the rest of my life, the next day or whatever, it's like I have this reference point of like, that was authenticity. That felt like authenticity, and or that was, that feeling of authenticity. And I think that's another part is like, what's the feeling? So a lot of things I'm learning, John, it's like it's dose dependent.
Yeah, that's right.
You need to access it over and over and over again. So then you start to become those things, and it works both ways. But if you want to be, what's that?
Dancing for me, I will be honest. Dancing is my number one fear. I fear dancing more than I fear death. I fear dancing more than I do public speaking. I'll speak in front of a crowd of 1,000 people before I dance, and that is because I fear it. And that comes back to why are we inauthentic? Because of fear. I fear being judged on the dance floor. I would rather sit, and this is me being authentic admitting this. At least I think it is. Like I would rather sit on the side and look as though I'm a stoic, like tall, strong, silent type, right? Than be on the dance floor making a fool of myself. But that's something I need to get over.
Right.
Because
right.
the true authentic John, the real authentic John wants to be out there dancing.
There you go.
And,
Yeah.
and I'm limiting myself because of the fear of being perceived as a bad dancer.
Yeah. And look at the limiting
and
beliefs.
you know what? Who fucking cares?
Right.
Who fucking
That's
cares,
what authentic
right?
it is. Who gives a fuck? Right.
Yeah.
Literally part of authenticity is like, I don't give a fuck. Who gives a
Yeah.
fuck? Like nobody gives a fuck. And it's like when we start to realize, I think, which may have helped people that are out there struggling to get to the next level of authenticity, is like nobody gives a shit anyway.
Yeah.
Everyone is so concerned about themselves typically.
They're so concerned with how others are perceiving them. And more often than not, people are not perceiving them. They're not even paying attention. So like people don't think about you as often as you think they think about you, right?
What are those like? So here's my piece. This is something, John. Like, what are those critical voices on the inside? And instead of, you just said like, I'm going to look foolish, right? So therefore, you're looking at yourself looking foolish, where everyone else does it is like, hey, John's dancing. You know what I mean? Or like excited that you're joining the crew of people that are dancing. I mean, so maybe that's something too. Get a journal. Right. And start writing down these limiting beliefs. Start writing down the things that are getting in the way of your authentic expression. On the other side of those things is your freedom, is the liberating part of yourself that will get you on a dance floor or get you into whatever. I mean, I took acting classes. I was on stage, John. I was on camera. I took all these classes, and it helped me. It just helped me to literally not give a fuck. And one of my teachers said, if you're going to fall flat on your face, you might as well get a bloody nose. And I was like, ooh, right? So just go for it. And again, and in those moments where it was a training, like to train to be an actor is to let go of your bullshit. Is to let go of all the stuff that's getting in the way of being peacefully authentic in the moment, with like driven by the script and the character and all those other elements that are part of the art of acting. But first, as for actors, and maybe this is something that people can do. I in New York, back in the day, there pre-COVID, there was like no shortage like improv classes, and people would just come in. They would take people, and I know even there's improv groups that go into corporations and teach them improv, not as a means to get them on stage and to be on SNL someday, but to learn about self-authentic expression.
Right.
Because it's like, because you're in like and overcome that fear of being seen and presenting and speaking and there's a lot of value on the other side of that fear, John. There's so much. That's where life can begin for a lot of people on the other side of those fears. 100%.
Yeah. Well, the fear and understanding why you have that fear, right, is again, how do I want to be perceived? I'd rather be perceived as the person that sits on the side and strong and perfect, quote unquote, than be perceived as a bad dancer. It just like when I
makes
say
a lot
it
of
like
sense,
that,
John.
when I
makes a lot of sense.
when I say it like that, it sounds ridiculous.
Right. Yes.
And so maybe that's another way. That's another way to become more authentic. Express, like you said it, right? You said journal it, but maybe say it out loud, because even saying it out loud here on the podcast, I'm like, John, that's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. Right. Or say it to somebody else. Say it to someone that's close. Like one thing also I learned as I went through, what really changed my life was this book here, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, right? And she talks about, when you are stepping out of your comfort zone into more of your authentic, heartfelt expression self, you have to be protective. She calls it your artist child. Like you're raising an infant in some ways.
I love
so
that.
You have to be very nurturing as far as like who you share these things with. So what you just said there, John, as far as like, oh, when I say these things, it sounds ridiculous. Like that's something you can express with someone you're close with, as far as like your wife or a best friend or something like that. It's like, hey, does this sound ridiculous? Or let me know if I'll check my mind here with this thought.
Logic. Does this make sense?
Right. And again, that's the mind typically, right? And some sort of fear-based limiting belief. But that could be a great way, and have them listen. Again, that's a simple way, John, to start maybe this authentic, self-discovery, is to change the input and output. So take some of those ideas and express them to somebody else. Hey, does this sound ridiculous? Or tell me, not even that's a leading question. Just say, tell me what this sounds like. You know what I mean?
Right.
So just some thoughts there.
love
Could
it,
be
man.
could be impactful for anybody that wants to, put both feet in the water of authenticity.
Yeah, and you know what? I would love to hear from our audience in this one.
Yeah.
Grant, right? So 100% transparency. We are recording this on Friday night,
being
November
authentic.
18th, and 100% transparency, authentic. So we are recording this pre whenever the fuck it's supposed to air. It's November 18th, late in the afternoon. That's why it's dark in Will's house right now.
Oh yeah, first time, right?
So normally we do this at 12:30 Eastern on a Friday. We're doing it late on a Friday night, and we're going to broadcast it later because I'm not going to be available at the time this airs. But the audience, I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat here on social media. I'd love to hear from you guys on our podcast on Spotify. You can actually comment on Spotify about what you thought of the show. So let us know what authenticity means to you and ways that you have found to be more authentic, ways to set that shield down, that mask, that armor. How have you gotten there? I'd love to hear from you guys. So
I would say even in take it a step further too, and inspire other people to be more authentic by writing about your pivotal moment to the on-ramp and the super amazing highway of authenticity. You know what I mean? Like something got you there. I mean, if you're really a naturally authentic person, and usually there's some sort of defining moment, or there's like that one moment in time. It's like everything changed, So
and again, taking it. We keep taking it one step further. One last step further. Where can you, as the audience, you don't have to put this in the comments or anywhere, but for yourself, where could you be more authentic? Where could you be more authentic in your life? Could you be more authentic with your significant other? Could you be more authentic at work? Could you be more authentic with your friends? And here's the big one. Could you be more authentic with yourself? Because, it's not just always outwardly that we're inauthentic, but sometimes even inward, we're lying to ourselves about what we want and who we are. So are there ways that you could be more authentic with yourself?
Do you have an answer to that question, John?
Man, put me on the spot.
Fuck
I think there are definitely times and places. I mean, the dance floor is one of them. I could be more authentic there.
That could be it.
I think there is on social media, there's a desire to seem as though you have it all together. I try to be very authentic on social media. And normally that resonates with folks, but sometimes I put some shit out there that seems as though I've got it all figured out, which I do not. I certainly do not. I try to be very authentic with my kids. I think in all honesty, I think the person that I'm probably most inauthentic with is myself. Which saddens me to say, but there are times when I am inauthentic with myself, and that real authenticity, real vulnerability, I think is going to allow me to be happier and healthier, and give myself the grace to live that happier and healthier life. So, I think that's I think I would need to figure out ways to be more authentic with myself more than anywhere else.
To answer that question, I honestly don't. I don't know. I can't think of anything, other places in my life that I could be more authentic. I mean, obviously there's some areas. I'm not saying like I'm the fucking pinnacle and perfection of authenticity, but
I have envy for you, man.
Yeah,
and I have some serious imposter syndrome going on. I've got all the things that we covered in all our shows going on.
So watch
right
those
now.
episodes. I think we can end it there, John. I mean, sorry, I don't have something more on that particular question, but that's something that hey, hold me to the fire, everybody out there, and and ask me those questions. Like, hey, Will. Or if I'm expressing myself in an inauthentic way, call bullshit, please. You're gonna help me in some ways. Fuck it, you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm here. We're here, to help people. And we like what I like, John. What we're doing, and we model, or we're the guinea pigs. You know what I mean? Like we model others, or we model in the sense of like try different things on. If this works, if it doesn't work, like whatever. And
Right.
so that's part of our authentic nature in the show and the unapologetic nature of the show for sure.
That's right. That's
So
right.
great, brother.
Well, let's wrap
I
it
think,
up
yeah,
with so again, as I've said in the past, a lot of the time when we go into that final grounding practice, I think we may be losing someone of you. So before I jump into that final grounding practice, I want to tell you as an audience, thank you. Thank you for
yeah,
listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here on video. Thank you for being here on audio and the podcast form. We appreciate you, and we appreciate your feedback. We appreciate your authenticity with us. So it's awesome. But we also want to ask you to share this with your friends, your family, your colleagues,
yeah,
anyone you believe can benefit from this,
yeah.
not just this episode, but the show as a whole. And you can share it as video on YouTube. You can share it as podcast.
Take a screenshot.
Yeah,
take a
that
screenshot and go and post it
Yeah.
right on Instagram. Be like, hey, I really enjoyed listening to Men Talking Mindfulness today. And our handle on Instagram is at Men Talking Mindfulness. And I'm at Will Not Fair on Instagram. John is no longer on Instagram, but that's okay. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, John. But I just and it's just an easy way to share, easy way, to get the word out there, because we, I think you understand this now, is creating a community of people that are living more consciously, more peacefully, more mindfully, more, and being better citizens in the world.
Yeah, and one other thing for the audience before we hit that grounding practice is if there's anything that you want to see us cover on the show, or any guests that you want us to bring on the show, please reach out and let us know. And if you have that contact of that potential guest, connect us. We would love to talk with them and bring them on the show to discuss your desired topic. We want to make sure we are serving you guys as our audience. All right, I beat that dead horse. So let's get into that grounding practice. I'll be, again, 100% transparent. It is Friday night. Will and Lindsay, our EA, in the background, pulling all the strings, making things happen. It's later, at least, on Friday night. So I want to wrap this up pretty quick. And it's the Friday night before our Thanksgiving break. So for our listeners, happy Friday, happy weekend, happy Thanksgiving. Now let's get into that grounding practice. All right, so whatever looks and feels safe and comfortable for you, go ahead and get into that position, and let's bring our attention to our breath. Bring your attention to your breath, not your breasts, Will. So let's bring that attention there.
Nice, John.
All right, our breath, your breath, paying attention to the physical aspects of it, not forcing anything just yet, just paying attention to it, bringing yourself and your awareness, your attention intentionally to the here and the now. This place, this time. Noticing the rise and fall of your diaphragm and what that does with each breath in and each breath out. What that does to your body. What your breath does to your body, what it does for your body. And even in the few seconds of silence, you and your mind may have drifted off to some other place, some other time. Just gently bring it back, no judgment. Gently bring it back to focusing on the physical aspects of each breath in and each breath out. And we will conclude one deep cleansing breath together. Begin by emptying your lungs, letting all that air out, bringing your navel to your spine. Nice deep breath in through your nose, ideally. Filling all the way to the top. And holding full. And release, 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 release. And start to bring some micro movement, maybe even some little dance moves into your body, dancing, being more authentic. Oh, there it is. If you guys are listening to the podcast, you got to come in and watch it on YouTube, because Will just busted out some awesome dance moves there. Hey,
some dance
again,
moves.
this is going to air after Thanksgiving, but we want you all to have a wonderful Thanksgiving break, a wonderful holiday season. As we come
Word.
up on the holidays, we have had an episode on how to deal with the holidays with less stress and more joy. So if you haven't listened to that episode, please tune into that episode too, because it is valuable. It'll give you some lessons on how to make the holidays better for you and for those around you. Will, I'll turn it over to you to shut it down.
Just want to say thank you, everybody. Have, hey, enjoy your life. Be authentic. Do the things that scare you and watch who you can become.
There you go.
That's
I
it.
love it. All right, brother. As
Thank you, brother.
always, until next time, peace.
Peace. Thanks, everybody.
Joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.